Hello and welcome to High or Lows, a 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons adventure set in the world of Taraz. I'm Philip Martin, your Dungeon Master, and with me is Lizzie McPherson.
Hey lovelies, welcome to 2023.
Next up we've got Daniel Fletcher.
Let's see how long this year lasts.
Generally lasts a year, I would say, Fletch. Next up we've got Laurie Crawford.
Yeah, pretty sure 365.
Back from a few absences is Mimbo Wang.
Unless there is nuclear war.
I don't think that's how time works either, Mimbo, to be fair.
Well,
and last...
For us, it ends, right?
I suppose in that relative context, yes. Yes, it does. It's a lot to contemplate, Mimbo. Anyway, last up tonight, we have Ash Mireya.
Merry Christmas, you filthy animals.
I actually did watch both for the first two Home Alone movies. I didn't watch the third one. This is just over the break season. Apparently, like, my brother and my brother's wife was like, yeah, we do this every year. You watch the Home Alone movies. Oh, okay.
100% classic.
Anyway, you may be sensing a slightly different vibe in the air, and if you read the description, you'd notice that we're doing a recap of the campaign so far this week. As well as, like, at the end, if we've got time, we'll have a bit of a general discussion of where we have the journey so far, and maybe where we're going to go next. Now that we've been doing this for about a year, like, and we're new to this, none of us have had podcasts before, so we're figuring things out as we go. I mean, like, I'll ask that, like, right off the bat. How do you guys feel as you guys have been podcasters for a year now, give or take?
Hooray!
Huzzah!
Yeah, I think at least that's in order.
I was about to huzzah myself.
The best huzzahs are always for oneself.
I think it's interesting because all of us, as some of us earlier listeners would know, we're all from such kind of different backgrounds, you know, and coming together and doing this one unified thing. It's been interesting for me. It's, you know, I'm from that world, but I've never really done this type of thing, and I know it's definitely got me more interested in kind of voice acting and all that all rigmarole.
And I've definitely learned a little bit in editing, at least.
Yeah.
And most of us only met through our loved shared hobby of Dungeons and Dragons. Ash, you knew Laurie and Fletch from past life, outside of gaming.
Indeed, yeah.
But the rest of us we had a love of the shared storytelling, I suppose.
Yeah, well, Ash and I met playing D&D in a different campaign a few years prior to, you know, me joining here.
So you did meet through Dungeons and Dragons. It was just a longer time.
It was,
so
yeah.
It feels like the friendship has evolved beyond that.
And I've got to admit, Ash, we did also meet through Dungeons and Dragons playing at your brothers.
Yeah, right. And that's the thing. Like, you look at our characters back then, so different, right? But and these characters come together in this world, this whole new world, this homebrew world that we're creating as we're going. And that's kind of, you know, we can say we've had so much experience, but it's damn well been new to me.
Yeah, and I think my second 5th edition campaign, like, I played a little bit years and years ago, but it didn't really go on for anywhere. But when I was getting into it recently, that's when I met you, Ash, and Laurie pretty early, and then Mimbo, you joined that campaign a little bit later, and then Liz, you were a bit more recent addition to our wider gaming group, and Fletch, I only started gaming with you a couple of years ago as well.
I know the answer for this for some of the people here, but Liz, had you played much D&D before kind of coming into the...
When I was living out west, I joined Blacktown City Libraries had a game night, and that's where I started. And then it just became a thing of, like, just finding that right group with the right dynamic, and yeah, just went from there.
What about you, Mimbo? Like, had you played much D&D before we met at Exiles to play that Storm King's Thunder game all those years ago? 4 or 5 years ago? 6 years
Not
ago?
really. I watched a little bit of actual gameplay, and then I read the player's handbook, but I hadn't really done much else, to be honest.
So basically, we've all met through gaming. Great way to meet people.
You know what? What's this? the icing on the cake. If it wasn't for you, Phil, I never would have met my boyfriend.
Who actually is among us here, I believe.
Well, it's interesting. I'm wondering if the audience can guess at this point. I don't know, it'd be interesting. Probably. I reckon Sharpie listeners would be able to guess.
I mean, yeah, no one say anything. Put them down in the comments, guys. That'd be interesting to see the responses are.
We'll do a reveal later if we have any comments. Like just message us. We'll reply. We don't like no one messages us like for podcast stuff. And when people do, we get excited. So ask.
How long ago was Lost Mines of Fendelva? That's when I started. Guys.
That was during early lockdown stuff in like 2020, when another DM, when Pete wanted to play as a player because he was just running games.
And mentioning that the lockdowns, that place that we were talking about, we called it Exiles. Whereabouts is that? What suburb was that again?
How
It's
long
in
ago
Marrickville,
was
but it's in
Lost
Marrickville
Mines
these
of
days, but it was
Fendelva?
in St.
That's when I
Peters
started.
when we first went there.
Yeah, good place. Everyone to get together and play some game.
And opposite a brewery, so it made it perfect.
Oh yes, I do remember.
And I, weirdly enough, do hip hop dancing lessons around the corner, but that's on a different night and with different people. None of you guys are doing this.
I remember the first time I went to that place. I had no idea didn't know anyone, and it was just everyone was playing D&D, and they bought. You walk down the hall, and all you could smell is body odor and people. Hear people
Smell of
playing
D&D.
The smell of D&D, Mountain
That
Dew,
brings me back.
Cheezos.
Yeah.
KFC and McDonald's, maybe some pizza.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like it's
Sounds
7
of
o'clock.
cans opening up.
Someone was doing a run to to the local shop.
Pizzas.
And these are the sounds and smells of gaming.
I'm sure our viewers are familiar with.
So I'm guessing that means that I didn't miss anything.
No, that was what's so great about it. It was just, and everyone was rolling dice, and like every now and then you'd lean over around the corner and say like, "Shut up," because you fucking.
See, I gotta say that that shows the age of the D&Ders in the group, and by that I mean the age or the length of time we've been playing D&D. Because Liz, when you play that long, you start to kind of that's your end of week. Relaxation. Those sounds, those smells, those cans opening up, the chips opening up, people just sitting around tables.
We had cans, we had chips, we had aircon. It.
There was no aircon in this place.
Mm.
I remember like
A fan in the corner wasn't it? And hooked up to a multitude of power boards that just I mean, everyone's been at a LAN party. I'm sure everyone's experienced it.
I don't know if everyone has, but I dare say a high percentage of our listeners have been to either that or something similar.
I played second edition. My English teacher gave me second edition books, and I brought it back to one of my mates' dad at the time when I was about 9 years old, and I was good mates with his son. And he used to run campaigns for us, and it was just fucking amazing.
Back in the days of Tharko.
Yeah, and then I got my third edition of books and bought heaps of those, and yeah, sort of built on from there. They had a group like that on the Central Coast as well, kind of like Exiles, where you go in and people bought Warhammer and stuff like that. You'd have Magic the Gatherings, but they'd also have like people buying the D&D books, and that's sort of where you'd find your mates to play D&D with.
So that actually brings up an interesting question. I think for everyone, where did everyone start in terms of editions? 3.5. I think for 3.5 for me. Yeah, for you.
I've always been 5th edition. I haven't ventured off yet.
Started the same as Fletch. Good old Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, 2nd edition.
Yeah,
On the computer, or we're talking pen and paper at this early age?
Pen and paper in I think it was year 5 in high school or primary school.
Yeah, primary school is because I think 3rd edition might have been out in late 90s, early 2000s. I don't know when the third edition came out, but I remember playing second edition, and then I played 3.5. Like I didn't even play third edition, and I never heard of Pathfinder.
Yeah. Well, I think I skipped 3.5 and went straight to Pathfinder because I had a big gap that I didn't play, or we played other tabletops, like good old Warhammer.
Yeah, you guys have a stronger history with this than I do. Like I had played Baldur's Gate as a teenager because my brother was into gaming, like PC gaming back then, and still is, to be fair. But I didn't get a chance to play any Dungeons and Dragons at all until I was 21 and was doing summer camp in America, and like got to play a camp like for 1 hour a day, like a couple of times a week. We grouped up to play with some kids and one of the counselor there that was running a game. But that was like my first experience until like I was basically 30 years old.
I think this is quite interesting now. You know, this discussion, Liz, you just said you came in at 5th edition. And I mean, in the media now, at the moment, there kind of is a bit of there's discussions of where the editions are now going and what this means for a lot of people. And it's interesting to kind of get an idea of those kind of, dare I say, old school players like myself, how they feel about these new editions. We got I think D&D 1, I think it's called, coming out now, and it'd be interesting to see some of the new people and what they think about this.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think we'll probably save that discussion for another time, because I think that's like a whole other territory. And I think
you don't want to know my opinion of that yet.
Yeah. So, and obviously there's a lot of stuff in the press as we speak right now about licenses and stuff. So we'll see how that all plays out. Anyway, I think that's probably a good time to segue into the recap of the adventure, unless someone had anything else to add to that discussion. Okay. So as we're saying, we're also doing a recap. So at the very start of the group, the very start of the adventure, I should say, the group were prisoners being punished for various crimes, and they were sent into the mysterious underworld called the Undercrag. I know it's a brilliant name, I know. How do you guys feel about the name?
It's unique.
Yeah, the Undercrag. I mean, I like it actually. I do like the name of the Undercrag.
I think it's kind of hard to name something and not copy from something else, so Undercrag is good.
There's 8 billion people in the world, you know.
Are there any influences, Phil, that sort of gave you that name, or you just thought, yeah, that'll suit?
But like it comes up a while, like yeah, like the Upside Down, Undermountain, the Underdark. These are all like, you know, things that are similar bits, but like.
Yeah, but the Undercrag sounds so much cooler than all of those. To be fair,
I think so too. And it's specifically because it's like it's the bottom. It's basically an upside down mountain hurtling through space. But it's not a mountain, it's a craggy rock.
Would this also be a little chance to give a little bit of history of the world of Torres?
I suppose like so the world of Torres is something we workshop together as we were creating the world of Dungeons and Dragons. And it's basically a world that is still in the grips of a god war, but it's sort of in the later stages of these gods having come into their initial power and slaughtering each other to have a bigger part of the power, and a coalition of gods eventually made this town called Virtue out of a mountain. And then at a later part of this god war, one of those gods basically made it separate from the planet of Torres, and now there is a direct link to his plane of existence, and that energy seemingly powers this mountain on one side and this under crag on the other side to be hurtling through space in a fantastical otherworldly orbit of the planet. And this is where the adventure takes place. The very start of the adventure takes place in the town of Virtue, which is a orderly town where there's seemingly most of the crime is confined to the outskirts where sort of crime is expected. People are the rules are a bit lax, but as you get into the more restrictive tiers, even lowly crimes might be punished quite severely by being sent to this undercrag where people are essentially expected to die, but also hopefully do a bit of, work purifying this place as they go. That's sort of probably a bit more than I wanted to get into, but like I think that's a pretty good summary as well.
Yeah, it gives a good starting point for the world.
Yeah. So after these 5 were sent down into this undercrag, they were also sent with others who quickly perished. Since there's been quite a variety of dangers, although they perished right in the first fight. From the initial caves, you noticed they connected to an underwater area, kobold control area, or a mushroom forest. How have you guys felt about the choices that I've been presenting to you along the way?
Well, I know, and this might cover 2 things here. It's been interesting for me because as I play Baracus Sorrel, the tiefling of the group, it's quite a kind of an outsider, and playing that character in this world that's already so foreign, and trying to navigate it has been interesting and a challenge and fun at times.
I don't think you've railroaded us at all. I haven't felt railroaded at least.
Well, except for the whole railroad bit, but
Yeah, that was pretty.
that's a different story.
That comes later. That's pretty recent, really.
Well, technically, I did perish at the beginning, but then I was reborn. So I think I wasn't too phased in what direction this was going. I was more concerned with like my identity. So I think this has been more of a who Thistle is. What is she? Like her abilities and whatnot.
Well, peek behind the curtain is that was planned by you and me together, and we sort of came up with that idea. But you've given me a bit of creative license to explore that within the world.
So yeah, like I said, like I don't think Thistle's too concerned about what direction we're going in because she's like trying to find her identity again.
I think Tweak is just like, how do I make this domain his? And the various ways he can create and forge a path down here and like get on top like he's used to. Like he was king of the goblins basically by being a slave to them.
And then king of the junkyard.
Yeah, and king of the junkyard. You know, the goblins respected him and revered him to a degree. And he's thinking, well, I suppose I can make this home. He's always had to make everything else home wherever he lands, so why not, make the most out of the situation?
You were also obsessed with the forge.
Oh yes,
Oh god.
the forge. He likes the idea of being able to forge awesome shit down there.
So yeah, day 1 of your exile saw you tentatively exploring the mushroom forest, but you doubled back after being attacked by some spiders after quickly discovering it was quite infested in there. And then you attempted to find a water source, and you found something passable to the north in the underwater area mentioned before. Then during the night, you would be attacked by people that you would eventually discover were inhabitants of Oasis. That's like my mysterious, dark, evil people.
Which for a good time we just thought were drow.
No, just because like there were some, but they weren't like that prevalent. And then the next day you basically pondered and what you would do before tentatively exploring the Kobold tunnels. And this is actually the day where you first met Candle in the Dark. How have you guys felt about him being added? He's been around for like 3 dozen episodes or so.
He's definitely one of a kind.
Yeah, it was good to have something down here that would be able to at least sort of help us through and navigate through things. It's never felt railroady, but at least he's been almost like a beacon of light at the end of the tunnel sort of thing. So we've always known sort of a direction to go because of Candle.
Yeah. What about you, Mimba? Your character has spent the most time at the back of the group with Candle. How do you feel about him as a character and being added?
I mean, I like to observe. What can I say, man?
That's fair. But you don't like when he calls you kid. You don't like when anyone calls you kid, to be fair.
He's been almost like a beacon of light at the
I'm an adult.
Well, no kids like to be called kid.
end
Aren't you calling him a kid
go
right there?
because of Candle.
Adults don't like to be called kid either.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, I think Callum is your biggest ally down here, having known of you for a good while, a few years at least.
Yeah, I mean, definitely a soft spot for him, for sure, no questions.
And I think I was the first to come to your defense when we were thinking of backstabbing, but no, we'll get into that in a bit.
Well, we gave your two characters probably the strongest connection, but there are minor to more like larger connections between the characters because you all did grow up within this insular city of virtue. Well, not grow up, but like spend the last few years there.
Yeah, this is true.
But there's probably a bit more to explore there later. Anyway, so with Candle in tow, you ventured back to the Mushroom Forest after the promise of this place called Homestead as like a community down here. How did you guys feel about that? The introduction of Homestead as a goal.
I don't know. I don't know about your, but my character kind of had reservations as much as Oasis as Homestead, and there were two very different places as we saw, but I think that might have just been a personal thing.
I think having chatted to Candle for a little bit about the morals and how each place kind of ran, it was kind of obvious that Homestead was the place we wanted to go to.
Having connections to resources, Tweak is just like finally I can start to exploit the environment around me a bit more and have connections that, connections to him are really useful. You can build things for people. His either wants to work for people or have people work for him.
A little bit about
Indeed.
the morals and how each place kind of ran. It was kind of obvious that Homestead was the place we wanted to go to.
Your people had done that to their great and ultimate dismay, that they used the land or used the resources, use them all up, or is that not part of your backstory that we know of?
I think it's just gnomish nature to want to adventure out and discover and like once you discover something, make the most of it possible, whether it be a really bad situation or a really good situation. That's what I love about gnomes. I just think that they're really inquisitive and really want to just make the most out of something.
Definitely a good, interesting way of looking at it. Yeah.
Like if you gave him a fire, he would want to make a furnace out of it, sort of thing. He just wants to build. If he could build like a motor car, he would.
I think this is just as much your gnomish, but also your artificer kind of heritage.
Yeah, definitely. There's a reason he's an artificer.
Yeah, Tweak's also just a bit of an oddball character that you built.
Yeah.
That too.
Yeah, he's very deranged and damaged in all sorts of ways.
To continue on the recap, as you were making your way through the Mushroom Forest, you were stalked by mysterious phase spiders in your group, and the area was so infested that you were unable to rest until you reached the undead goblin farm of Padrak Mushbloom, which was hostile to you, but you eventually defeated him and his zombies, who's unfriendly zombies. And you rested here and gained a lot of gear from raiding that farm.
Sorry, go on.
What are you going to say?
I was just going to say I would be very interested, and perhaps this is a bit of Baracus coming out as well, in what Thistle has to say about this, because I felt like Thistle was just dreading the idea of going back to the surface and going back to that place out of boredom or possible links. I don't know. Can we get any any indication there?
I'll let you find out over time.
Well, let's just ask this then, a more direct question. Like, did you... There were a few times there where we had an option to kind of get back up to the surface, and she openly said, I do not want to go up there.
No, you haven't had any opportunity to go back up to the surface. You had opportunities to go back up from the Dwarven Ruins up to the Mushroom Forest, but that's as close.
That's what I meant. Yeah, up to the forest. I mean,
I think you just got sick of the spiders. Well, so after you defeated and got Padrak and gained all this gear at the farm, you took your rest there. But in the morning, this is where you were introduced to more powerful members of Oasis, who gave you an ultimatum, and they actually tried to recruit you. Was anyone sort of interested in going the dark path?
Yeah, I definitely wanted to investigate the surface kind of first look that we got, and to see if it was indeed as nefarious as it seemed.
But I think with them being as hostile as they were to Chuck, Callum definitely wasn't for it.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think Twig might have been tempted a little bit, but Twig's, knows what horrible people are like and knows how difficult they are to live with too. So he knows that if it chose that path, there will be pain and suffering ahead of, for him in some capacity.
Well, I presented with you with a way to escape through the underground river, and I'm glad you did, because that led to my favorite episode, and I had to prep this whole thing. So this is when you were escaping in the underground river. I just like it because it feels to me, it's like the scene in my head is the most action-packed moment of the campaign, as you've got Chuck flying down the river as you're all just struggling and working as a group to avoid various threats and get to the bank.
I mean, I was only struggling because freaking Tweak kept stomping on my head while I tried to save him.
And I warped shape into a spider, so I wasn't struggling.
Well, you had giant wolf spiders chasing you down, and so you were also fighting them off.
Twig was really struggling.
Yeah, I think at one point you used my head as a stepping board to get above the water and push me down 5 meters.
Yeah, Twig was not having fun in that river. And yeah, he was drowning pretty bad.
I remember for a portion of that, I was invisible, and I knew the moment that was happening, and we were in the drink. Okay, shit, we can't see. I'm invisible. What is this going to mean?
I just love there was just so much action. Just feel like the most action-packed ever. You had the Avengers hero landing from Mimbo's character. At the end, he was one of the 2 dry people. It's good. And then you got to the bank, and there was the skeleton in the chest, and this is where you found a very small group of mimics, because it's just fun when things change shape and try to bite you.
Twig is so paranoid because think of it from his point of view, how small he is. Those squids were giant squids, and they were big to you guys. They just eat Twig in one gulp. And so is the mimics. There's a reason why he's constantly conniving and he's trying to stay alive as best he can because he knows that he's one step away from being eaten alive by a box.
That's really interesting. You got to think it so some might call him, a bit of a couple screws short of a tweak, but how did he get to be that way, and what's the reasoning, and what makes a person broken like that?
Well, I just mean he's small. You guys have a different perspective, and everything seems so big to Twig. So everything's so much more scary. So falling in the river and then nearly being eaten by mimics. I mean, yeah, that was not a good couple of episodes for Twig.
You've had a few bad runs like that, though.
He's got a fear of swimming as it is. Yeah, I can see that.
They don't seem to deter you too much, though. So at this point in time, you're stuck in this weird little bank after killing these mimics in this underground river. You're looking a ways forward. You could try digging back up to the mushroom forest. It was always an option to try to make your way back to the mushroom forest, but instead you decided to go further down this river. And this is where you fought the giant octopuses.
I think this is the bit where there's a bit of Liz, and she did a very Liz-like thing.
You mean completely disregard a plan and then jump into it?
Yeah, pretty much.
It's all part of Dungeons and Dragons, right? And that's all of your characters have a little bit of that in them because that is Liz.
Yeah, I remember, and I think I really hope the podcast captured this. That there was seconds there where everyone just went silent, and it was
there's a bit of Liz, and she did a
big
very Liz-like
collective
thing.
groan from all the rest of us.
Just this thing of us trying to figure out. Hold on, is this Thistle? Is this Liz? Is this where they both combine? What's happening here? Oh shit, we're in combat.
I had to make it interesting.
Again, it was just a great scene of you going ahead to sort of half scout, half see if you could entice the octopus back closer to the bank, and then you just dropped, tried to swim back to the group, and just like the tentacles whipped out and just wrenched you back to the octopus. Great scene.
Oh, it was fun. I enjoyed it.
And then a second octopus joined because why not? Like why not have two? ¿Por qué no es dos? I probably said that terribly.
We make that much noise, and that's bound to happen.
But the second one eventually retreated with an ink blast and lived for another day. So this is when we made use the octopus corpse to make a bizarre raft, so you could sort of slow your descent through the water. That was a bit of a macabre moment.
I was hoping we could forget that episode. Terrible idea, and I'm sure Baraka's voiced it.
It was not a terrible idea. It worked.
It was a great idea.
Exactly.
And like, to be fair, like sometimes as a DM, you've just got to make a call. I don't know if that would actually work. You weren't actually using it to stay dry. You were just using it as a flotation device. So I think it would.
Well, I think we did have a lot of wood to help it out. I think the octopus itself was more kind of binding it together.
Yeah, and like corpses take on air when they die, I think. So that's a thing. So yeah, you were using the octopus rope, I think.
We netted nothing from that experience, and I'm going to maintain that viewpoint. We netted nothing except finding out that we can fall off the edge of the world in this realm. Huh. Everyone remember that?
I actually do.
That was after here, though.
Well, this is the first you almost lost
was a bit
track
later on.
with the octopus raft.
But I
That's
also
what I'm
remember Tweak having his Tom Hanks from Castaway moment as well. That was like one of my most that scene just really stayed with me.
Oh yeah, that was just trying to remember. There was I had the raft going, and I nearly lost Giznat.
Well, you've nearly lost Kisnat a few times, or maybe you have lost him a few times. Who knows?
You definitely lost him. Almost lost him in the river if I didn't pick him up. I have noticed that's a running thing. I've saved you guys a fuckload. Actually, now I think about it,
We are
You're
very grateful to Callum.
You're the dad of the group.
this is true.
Like quite literally, your character is a dad. Not literally as in Laurie is a dad. The only dad of the actual group is Fletch, Tweak is very much not the dad of the group. He is the crazy uncle of the group.
Yep.
Yeah, I gotta make sure I'm not a father in these games because I can escape.
Yeah, and Laurie's just doing the opposite, I suppose. But after this is where we went from the river. We were only in the river for like 2-3 episodes, and then you moved into the Dwarven Ruins, which we spent quite a bit of time in these Dwarven Ruins. But I think here is where you guys discovered a bit more of the lore of the Undercrag, I feel.
Yeah, well, this is kind of where we we figured out that this had been here for so long, and it's definitely predates Virtue by hundreds of years.
Yeah, there's a rich history here of goblins and dwarves, and Tweak's character knows a bit about the goblins' history, but like not enough. They didn't necessarily talk about their history a lot, and goblins don't have a lot of books. So yeah, from the Dwarven Ruins, this is when you started discovering the suits of armor, and you started discovering interesting rooms, like rooms where wizards had done their deeds, and some of the gear you were finding started to go up in quality quite significantly.
And our mistrust for you increased after the mimics. Then you started throwing these rugs and suits of armor, awakened weapon.
Yeah, but
Nothing is safe.
It all checked out. The whole point is anything in this place could kill you. And you were in places that hadn't necessarily been disturbed by humans for a while, so they, were ready to go. Yeah, but I do remember, there was a rug, it was a broom, a halberd,
A table?
a table, I think, as well. Yeah, so it was a rug, a table, a broom, and a halberd. We're trying to smother and attack you. And this is where
I think it wrapped around Tweak, didn't it? And really suffocated him.
I think you nearly lost Giznat there as well.
I did
but
nearly lose Giznat. Or maybe I lost Giznat there.
I think Chuck, maybe did Chuck pull you out of this one?
Chuck definitely saved Giznat there. I remember that.
Yeah. Was it Giznat? Oh, that's right. No, it was my automatron boa with Giznat obviously in it that was wrapped up.
And I think this is when this is probably the first episode where Tweak and Chuck started to get along a little bit more.
I think Tweak's always gotten along with Chuck.
I don't know, maybe.
I think he just likes to provoke Chuck. Chuck. I think he just likes to poke the bear.
What calls you a goblin?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's true.
You both provoke each other.
It's fun.
Yeah. And after fighting all this furniture, then this is one of the moments where the group was very injured, very tired, very low on resources, and you didn't want to do anything. You just wanted to stop, close yourselves in, and have a rest. And I'm glad that there's been a few moments where you've literally been a little bit just afraid to move forward.
Well, it kind of was our first chance to rest since escaping the guys from Oasis up at the farm.
Yeah, you'd sort of been on the run for a long time and hadn't had a place to sort of close your door behind you. And Candle was healthy enough that he led an enemy away.
Which I think we were told was a carrion crawler.
Yep. And it's an introduction of new enemies in this area of the dungeon, with all the corpses around here. You opened a locked chest, and Thistle had her first flashback.
Yeah, I don't think I was successful in opening that chest very well from memory. I think I struggled with that chest.
You did, I
Yeah.
remember. I think you asked a couple of people for help.
I think we might have forced it in the end.
Maybe. I can't remember. It's 7 months ago. But this is where we found some of your first books, little things just to figure out. Yeah, you sort of dragged the carrion crawler away and kept exploring the room and found you found a couple of other survivors from the shoot and scavenged a little bit of extra gear from them. Just again, this is sort of where you started getting a lot of gear, I think, in this new area.
It was also our first kind of introduction to a strange sound that we started to hear in the background. Tink, tink, tink. Mining going on in the background. Wondering what that may be in the distance.
That's true, yeah. There's also a little thing to think about. And I think this is also when you started getting a bit more strategic with your combats. The animated armor had been a thorn for a while, so you started knowing how to fight them quite well.
I think we started working better as a team, especially Baracus and I in the front lines, and Thistle to an extent as well, all making sure to stay near me so I can kind of intercept attacks on them.
Yeah. And this is actually the moment after defeating that armor, that's when you discover the forge. So you discover the forge on day 3 of being in the Undercrag then.
And not a day has gone past where we haven't heard about it.
Where the obsession started.
So your first sleep was at the abandoned camp near the chute. Your second sleep was at Padrak Mushbloom Farm. And then your third sleep was in the forge. So after you went in the forge and you discovered some very good stuff in here, and the forge is seemingly still on fire somehow after all this time, and that was definitely something that Tweak was very interested in. It was not without some protection, and there were a couple of things you had to be wary of as you entered this place. But I think this is probably the moment where I was like, all right, I'm going to give you guys some proper treats.
I think I almost set off 3 traps in there as well.
We have those big doors that we can't open.
Yeah, I was going to say, and also withheld us a proper treat, I believe. The doors that Fletcher's talking about.
We'll get back to that later, I'm sure.
Well, we'll see. So many things you'll try to get back to later. You might not have time.
Oh no, Tweak is definitely getting back to that forge.
Yeah, but so in the forge, you were given the opportunity to do the skills challenge by the dwarven ghost. Yes, Jerkin's steel coat. And this is where you were awarded a couple of things for doing so well on creating your weapons. So I think this is some of your first proper magic items.
Yeah, I ended up getting a +1 shield, which was perfect for my style of play.
And one of you guys gave me either a shield or some armor. I can't remember off the top of my head.
This is where I picked up a handy old crossbow and a very large adamantine great axe, which later kind of we used to barter very well.
And you got some nice cast-off armor as well, which was quite good.
Yeah,
Yep.
something.
I got what was it? Some ball bearings, I think, and like, was it the place
So
where the
that's
books
way
were-
later. So what happened
Is
here
it?
is this is the first episode. You were away
Colleague
for
with
some
his
reason.
supplies?
Yeah,
Oh,
so-
no, I was in that room where we nearly got killed. I was definitely there.
You weren't in the forge room initially, because you were away that week. You had a little side adventure. You went back to the room with the where you found the chest and stuff, and you explored the debris, and that's when you found the bricks containing scrolls.
Yeah, I was about to say scroll. So okay,
Yeah, so that's what happened then. So that's the first separation when you weren't here, so Tweak ran away from the group, and Candle went to cover you as you went to explore this room.
Which, annoyingly enough, Tweak would have been the most adept at this skill challenge.
I do remember thinking that, yeah. One time my character actually needed him.
yeah, just trying to bugger off when he's most needed.
True to form.
I've got a wonder.
And yeah, there was a bit more carrion crawler activity as a concept. You know, you were just moving bodies around to keep them away from you. But you had a proper sleep in the forge, which was quite nice. It was the first time you'd had like proper heat down here. But there was the moment during the night where there was a mysterious light and noise could be seen from under the door, the hidden door that you'd come in, but eventually died down and no more disturbances. That's another thing that you might be able to explore later.
I wonder what that was.
Well, I know, or do I?
Perhaps warring factions, or maybe just a little tussle.
I get the feeling it's something of the supernatural, with the eerie light and the sounds of what sounded like goblins and dwarves fighting.
Well, you also met a ghost down here and like zombies, the talking zombies and such. And you'll be meeting them soon. You sort of go past this crossroads after going east through the area, and the sounds of the mining continue getting louder. And you go down and you go check out the sounds of mining. And as you get there, these undead dwarven miners are in a battle with ant kegs. And after sort of checking them out for a couple of extra rounds, longer than you maybe had to, you decide to go join the fray and help them out.
I call bull on that. I charged straight in.
I feel like you took like an extra round and a half to be like, should we, shouldn't we?
1 round I'll give you, not 2.
I stretched it out to 1.5. But this is the first like acid attacks that you were dealing with. And this is when you've introduced some new characters. These characters were Drunkus Stone Smasher, who asked you to rescue his brother who'd been taken by the ant kegs.
Well, one of the other things which was kind of interesting was this is the first instance we saw someone that was quite like Thistle.
Yeah, you got a little bit more information about her story, maybe.
Was it around this time that I was contemplating cutting my toe?
I'm sure it sounds like a thing. Yeah.
It's definitely with these dwarves that you thought of that.
And so this is another thing. I think Mimbo was away this week, so Chuck separated from the group for a little bit and was chasing a spectral figure north down the crossroads in this area. And this is where he was running down an unexplored area. But eventually him and Candle gave up pursuit and joined the group. And you guys went to go rescue Sobra Stone Smasher. And you got them back after fighting an ant keg queen, which does not exist. Just so you guys know, I made it. I redid a different stat block. So don't try to find that if you're looking to recreate that combat. Message me if you want to know what I used. it works well enough.
It was an interesting fight, that's for sure.
You find that a lot in this campaign.
But like, yeah, it had chitin things and acid abilities. I was like, close enough, and it was bigger.
I'm pretty sure Tweak got his face burned off, essentially.
Ooh, yeah.
This is when the PTSD for Tweak started getting thick and heavy, I think.
Yeah.
And
that-
Thistle
that's-
started to show some sensitive side towards Tweak's plight.
I've
However,
always been sensitive to Tweak. Okay, Tweak's my favorite.
Oh yeah, that's right. You tried to use you still had this octopus head with you, and you tried to use that as a distraction, and it maybe got you a couple of turns, not even a full round of distraction, but it didn't hurt.
Yeah.
Um,
I think that wasn't the last time I got hit by acid either. I don't think.
And I don't think it was the first either.
running gag for sure.
And whereas Chuck plays the exact opposite to you, and is like pretty much always on the distance, doing just like the most safe attack he can do from the fringes.
I think at this point it's canon that I have like acid burns and scars forming on my face.
Oh yeah, I think we found that out later when we. I'll mention it later.
And do you have anything to say about my comment about Chuck playing it a bit safe in combat?
I mean, he's a kid, right?
Yeah.
God damn it.
And we're seeing a bit more of the Baracus and Callum duo with a bit of Thistle and Tweak getting involved on the front line as well. But Baracus and Callum very much taking a point on that regard. But Thistle definitely not afraid to get involved on the front line quite regularly with the Steel Defender. Next up, there's some mysterious light up in the distance in this Ankeg infested area. So you send Candle. They're the sneakiest and fastest to go investigate, while you take Sobris back to Drunkus, and you get your reward. That's where you get your hammer pick, which is probably the best weapon, and probably something I gave you too early. But whatever, what's done is done. I think canonically Drunkus was a little bit like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done that, but whatever. What an offer's an offer.
Oh, he did say to take our pick, and we took the pick.
And it wasn't a kind of trade that was one-sided. I remember we did offer and give a book, and we're kind of still wondering about that book as well.
And we also reunited him with his brother or whatever it was.
Yeah,
Yeah, we did.
I mean, what's more important, flesh and blood, your brother, or a magical pick?
yeah.
Magical pick.
So you got a little bit of information from him about the book, and then you start exploring the Dwarven ruins, and this is when you start exploring the rooms. And this is where I think Thistle tries to get eaten by a floor in one of the rooms.
More deception.
Yeah.
Still not the last one. I think there's at least one more thing coming up.
Yeah, so that definitely was like the floor called a trapper tries to just kill you. Yeah, that's true.
Definitely had a feeling of like when you open up this door, we've got to be prepared. Things are going to eat us coming out of nowhere, and they fucking shouldn't be.
And then in the next room, you fought a basilisk, but no one turned to stone. Sadly, I think Chuck got a little bit close, but then rolled our way from it, so didn't have to succumb to it. But I think Chuck was the closest to becoming stoned.
Yeah.
Forever petrified. Okay, so what's next? Sturges. This is when you fight the Sturges.
Yep, with the big water-covered floor.
Yeah, you tried to sneak past them, but you splashed through in the water, alerting the Sturges, and those bloodsuckers come alive and try to suck your blood. But after defeating them, I think you find like a place where to rest nearby.
You know, for those who don't know, Phil has a thing about Sturges. He loves it in all his campaigns. He likes to put Sturges in, and they usually do a lot of damage to the party.
We did pretty well in this one.
I mean, to be fair, the other ones that's always been the books that have been running for you guys. So, but they just work.
Well, usually we get pretty mutilated by Sturges in other campaigns, but we did alright in that fight, I think, didn't we?
Yeah,
They're perfect learning fodder.
well, we definitely did take a bunch of damage, because I think we bedded down in a staircase we found going upwards into a room, there was a little dripping stream of water that we could kind of refill our jugs for the day.
It was a slow stream, but it was a clean stream, and this is where you took your 4th long rest, and leveled up to level 4.
Though I think before that, someone decided to do some scouting.
And yes, you may have seen a skull that was floating around on fire. And that's like another area that you did not actually explore, but existed.
It seemed to be like an old chapel that Thistle and Tweak poked their head in and just went, nope, and ran straight away.
And look, we shall rest instead. But you weren't pursued. They seem, maybe they didn't want to leave that place, the undead. But next after this is where you first discover the chasm. And you start exploring the ledge and trying to move forward here. And this is where Thistle does her scouting in giant wolf spider form and like says, no, let's not go to the mushroom forest. This is your next option to go back to the mushroom forest. But instead, you make your way towards the bridge that you've heard about, but it is controlled by harpies, but they do this is where you rope yourselves together, climbing along.
I think we made some rudimentary earplugs.
Yeah, and I feel like the chasm is like a distinct area within the Dwarven Ruins as itself. Like there's just like this area. But no one. There was like this is where the chaotic scene happened, where you're all running forward. Who was surging forward?
Myself, maybe Baracus? Oh no, I don't think it was Baracus.
Well, some of us were mind manipulated.
Yeah, I think I was definitely mind manipulated. I don't think you were, but I think either Chuck or Tweak was.
Yes, it was Callum and Chuck. And so you were surging ahead, causing chaos in the rope, and you basically ended up just being a big lumpy pile of roped together people. And that either your saving grace or, well, no one died. And so this is where you fought your first group of harpies. And after that, you made your way to the bridge. And
we kind of glazed over this in the earlier recap, but it kind of came up again, and that is the question of this place, Toraz, and this place that we exist above, that there is actually a kind of realm way down below, and I think we might have even hung down and saw below, though we never kind of ventured forth into the darkness.
Definitely are further down realms below, basically tips of this craggy mountain, and you can see sunlight by going down far enough. So Thistle, when she was able to see some sunlight in her scouting, was quite happy to just bask in that for a little while.
Yeah, she probably would have stayed there longer, but couldn't.
So you make your way to the Harpy Bridge. There's a bit of a conversation about raiding the nests or burning the nests or what have you, but you decide to leave them rather than essentially committing an act of war or war crime, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I was going to say we had no allegiances forthcoming from those harpies.
But this bridge was never a bridge at all. It was basically some dwarven building that was somehow managed to stay mostly connected after the separation event, because who would have ever built a bridge down here? But once you're sort of out of the harpy area, you take another short rest and make your way into the dwarven mines. No, that sound was the sound was more the dwarven zombies. This is that was like a new mining area that they were setting up because they could. This is like the old dwarven mine. This is and this is on the black pudding dripped down from the ceiling and attacked you. Is that the next instance, Laurie, or is it something else?
I think that sounds right. Well, this is about the time that you decided to railroad us. In other words, there was literally a railroad all the way.
Well, yeah, there's a railroad, but it's not always a linear railroad. It was sort of, there were deviations, and often you guys chose not to go explore down other paths.
These paths were some of them. There were heaps of deviations during this. Once we found the railroad, there were a few rooms we needed to get back to.
That's true.
Yeah, because I know we explored a few, but then decided no, there's just way too much. We need to get to Homestead.
And there's more acid attack of PTSD for Tweak as he gets slapped in the face by the elder black pudding.
And my face like acids off.
I think I almost lost my sword, and Thistle definitely lost her armor.
Yeah,
Oh,
there's a
yeah.
bit
Yeah.
of armor and like mundane stuff's getting damaged. You took a bit of a hit here, but yeah, you are still finding things in this new area.
That was punishing. I remember that.
Yeah, no, you're still finding stockpiles of like lockboxes and like supplies down here, and you're finding a little bit more of the history of this place, of what maybe happened down here. And I finally succumbed and gave Tweak a little bit of gunpowder.
Oh, and we also found out some of the other mysteries of this Undercrag place. I think we first saw some footprints and what that may have meant, and some creatures that may have been kind of setting us aside.
The fish-like beings.
Yeah, what were they called?
That is coming up. But yeah, so the next bit you also might have been referring to this story when the stalagmites
Oh yeah,
tights
Stalactites.
stalactites they come alive and try to smother your heads. That was another pretty funny scene, as most of you had like something wrap around your head. I think Candle almost died this time. It's like the one time where Candle almost died.
I think Chuck almost killed Candle.
Yeah, it was
Yeah, he did. He crit him, I think, didn't he?
yeah.
in the head.
Oh, was it Tweak actually? I forget. One of the two, and it was quite hilarious.
It was Chuck. I remember I was standing right next to that
Yeah.
him in that fight, and it was a bit of a close one.
But you took care of him, he's still alive. And yes, this is where you find the Quotor gear, and find the grabby staff, and just some other random stuff, a little bit of rope. As you're coming across these traps and disabling them.
Tweak finally got his rope at this point.
Yeah, it's like and there's like the mystery of like who's setting up these traps, what purposes are they. So I think that mystery has mostly been answered at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it seems to be homestead, if anything,
Yeah.
or at least some of the more well-constructed ones. There seem to be a few crude traps as well, though, which
Yeah.
could be the fish people.
It's true. It's true. And then after this, you start thinking about making camp for the night. This is in the junction area. So that's night 5. You rest in the junction area, and you went to go to a grotto that Candle sort of knew about, which is where you had the giant centipede fight, which proved to be a reliable food source as well as water source.
Yep, that was dinner for the night.
And after that, you woke up and you were interrupted by undead. A small undead horde descending upon your group, and you had to flee with your mining cart that you've been stockpiling all this random stuff you've been collecting. And this is where we did the little winding mine. This is the railroad episode, to be fair.
Very interesting skill challenge.
I thought it was fun. I like busting out the skill challenges. It's like just a little bit different, and I like keeping them open.
They must be coming from that goblin, I thought. The goblins sending hordes of other monsters down.
Nah, he's dead.
There's none.
Yeah,
He's
we
undead.
killed-
Padrak Mushroom is dead.
He's double dead. He's not only undead, but he's also dead.
Who was chasing us down into the water?
That was Oasis.
That was the Oasis. That was a pair from Oasis who were seemingly working with the spiders.
Oh man, I got that so wrong for so many. Such a long time.
To be fair, I think in the episode, like about this time, you got it wrong then too. Like in the actual episode recordings.
Yeah, definitely. I was thinking, yeah, we'll still chase by that thing. That goblin. Oh well, glad we cleared that up.
Baracus is finding out that it is not so cut and dry, and these undead, some of them are not so. I wouldn't call them good, but who of us are? I'm definitely not me, and some of these undead are useful. Some of them are complete rat shit, like that Mushbloom, who just wanted our souls and would have given us refuge at what cost? I don't know, but
I think that could just be less to do with him being undead, more to him being sentient.
He was trying to form an army.
Oh, he was. But there's a lot of rat shit people that are alive, so it's not exclusive for him being undead.
Absolutely, and that's what I'm saying. And I think that's kind of an interesting thing as we go further into Homestead. Is these things aren't so black and white, and evil comes in many forms.
I think, yeah, definitely, like, you're getting in, and now that we're exploring Homestead and, like, you're meeting people, like, you'll definitely meet more denizens of the Undercrag, not just Homestead, but you'll see both allies and enemies, which we sort of already touched on, but there'll definitely be more of that.
Chuck is still kind of worried that he's going to get lynched at some point.
Fair enough. Well,
Got to get through me first, mate.
No, I do appreciate that, but like, I mean, he's not going to be popular here.
Well, you've seen that Baracus is dealing with the same thing, and it seems like they're going to, that this group is not one to be trifled in terms of that.
What do you think? What do you think Twig's been looking for a rope for such a long time?
So it isn't just a rope trap.
Shut up, Goblin.
Evil does come in many forms.
Well, actually, just to backtrack just a little bit, during your the light rest before you're chased by the Horde, this is the night where Chuck is visited by a mysterious voice. It explains that they're trapped further back and they might be able to give Chuck much more power. But I don't think Chuck has shared this with the group in any way.
He has not. He's not even like quite sure right now if he's like dreaming or if this is real.
Fair.
I think this is around where we kind of shacked up for one of the nights, and Chuck had his own room, and
Oh, that was ages back.
That was 2 nights ago back in the Forge. We
glazed over it because I think that I'm not sure. Well, I mean, we shouldn't have glazed over it. That was interesting for me that night because everyone was kind of in their own place and they were kind of meditating under their own circumstances, under some things that we've been through, and I kind of wonder what that had meant for us. And
I think it's the first time that we'd had time to kind of have mental time to think about things. We were safe. There was little chance that we were going to get ambushed, so we could kind of just do our own thing and kind of chill and just recuperate.
Yeah, and you had a degree of privacy and warmth, heat.
For the first time in a long time.
But yeah, like, it was an interesting moment. But yeah, just to get back to where we were in the recap. So as you ran away from the Horde, eventually you get away from the Horde and you reach Homestead. Yay! But as you reach Homestead, this is where you're greeted by the guards, and as you're talking to them, you're attacked by the undead Shamblinis.
Shambling mounds for anyone that doesn't play with Phil.
I do love a good Shamblini, though.
I was going to say, what were they actually called? Shambling mounds. They almost did us in then.
They weren't normal shambling mounds, were they?
They were undead Shamblinis.
Yeah.
A bit more powerful.
But I like this. Like, this is where I start introducing you into how the setup of, like, Homestead and how it's guard. You've got your goblins and your tiefling working with your half-elf and a tabaxi as guards in this part of Homestead.
Everyone seemed to be putting forward guards. Like, it wasn't just the humans or just the tieflings. It was everyone.
Yeah, exactly. And then after that fight, you sort of meet a few people and you make your way into Homestead and you get to know some of the locals. You meet the leaders and the couple of things that pointed out to you from Chuck. Not from Chuck, from Candle. And you get to know a little bit more about this place. You go meet some of the people running this place. And you get told you're going to get a week's room. Yeah, how do you guys feel about, like, having reached Homestead finally after, like, as we've described in the episodes, like, you had 5 sleeps. You had 5 rough sleeps, one of them without knowing about Homestead before you reached Homestead. But in the podcast, that actually took us a long time. that took us sort of 10, 11 months to get through. But, like, that was 5 nights in game.
Well, normally in a D&D game, usually have somewhere that you can go to sleep, but we just didn't have that option. So it was kind of interesting, just having to kind of run on and try and find somewhere safe.
I remember Tweak being interminably interested in this place and the possibilities that this infrastructure of Homestead can provide.
And customers.
Yeah, I can trade. That's always a good thing.
But you seem happy you're meeting new people now. Inari, hearing more about their story. Who else have we got? Alamia, Arak, the orphanage, the tap and bunkhouse. Are you sort of enjoying knowing about the tapestry of this place?
I mean, he's got a job. Tweak's got his job, so.
Oh, he's got a trial lesson organized.
Well, I think it's good. It's kind of changed the dynamic of the game from less of a survival game now at this point to more of a town building, essentially, in a way. Depending if we stay here, that is, of course.
Well, remember, you've been away physically from the game just a little bit when the Homestead started. Are you like curious about the Homestead stuff?
Yeah, I'm definitely curious, but I figure I'll find that out like when we start actually recording episodes, right?
Well, canonically, like you separated from the group since you were away, so you don't know what the group's been doing, but you'll have been doing other things when you got here. We'll figure that out when the next episode starts. So far, the group have met a few people, just some of the locals. They've been to the shop, they've been to the tap and bunkhouse / orphanage, and been to the church / council hall, but there's still a bunch of people they haven't met.
And they have a farm.
Oh, yeah.
The farm is intriguing.
Yeah, definitely for me as well, yeah.
Well, I
And
think you definitely want to meet up with Band and Sognak, I think, Fletch, because he's the engineer guy.
Oh, yeah.
And then I think you haven't met Old Mad Marjorie, the guard, lady in charge of the guards. And there are a
Also,
couple more of the council members that we haven't either.
I'm a big fan of Minecraft, and all I can think about is like those cows and chickens and stuff, like how to make an automated mine, like produce farm for these things.
I don't think it's going to work like that here.
D&D can be arguably it's probably simpler in D&D, right? You just have to convince me how to do it and then convince me what the role is, and then we'll roll for it. But that's pretty much where we're at in the campaign. You guys are at Homestead really just figuring out the lay of the land now. So for anyone that newly, like if this is the first time listening, we really appreciate you listening and getting to this point. And you could probably just listen to the last couple of episodes if you're curious what's been going on at Homestead. But otherwise, you've been given a pretty good summary of what the group has endured up until this time to get a context of the adventure to this point. If any of those episodes sounded interesting to you, please go back and listen. I'll start with my favorite. I recommend episode 12, A Rapid Escape, is my favorite. Does anyone else have a favorite episode they would recommend to someone?
I really like the encounter with the bird, the hawk things, the banshees or whatever they are.
The harpies.
The harpies, that's it. Yeah, that was cool for me, and I like the whole it's open ground and a discussion about aerodynamics.
I think that's either episode 32 or 33. 32 is all tied up, and 33 is between a rock and a high place. That's the harpy sort of section. Although the chasm starts in episode 31.
To be a little same as Phil, I kind of like that whole mushroom farm, then the oasis bit and the river bit. That's my favourite section so far. And but that said, I did really enjoy the squid raft. I thought that was hilarious.
Well, yeah, Mushbloom Farm, that's episode 9, and like episode 9, 10, 11, 12. That's like some of those episodes, that's just them exploring the area, getting gear, and some of it's a bit more action. Like it's like the pace changes. When is the raft? The raft that's only like episode 15, Blackwater Rafting, I believe.
That sounds right, yep. Yeah, I enjoyed that section. There was a lot of silliness and combat and fun. It was good.
What about you, Liz? Do you have a favorite episode? Favorite arc?
Speaking of silly, well, yeah, I do like the big escape when we went down the waterfall and we had to go swimming. But my favorite one is one of the recent ones when Tweak introduced the whole concept of moist mushrooms.
Yeah, there's only 2 episodes ago. Episode 43, Moist Mushrooms.
Yes.
When
Oh,
you
yeah.
figure out why there is light in this town of Homestead, and you get very excited about it.
Phil broke me.
Liz and Fletch, very mature. Very mature.
Fletch started it.
I don't think I've known you a long time, Fletch, and I don't think I've ever heard you. I'm not going to say laugh. I don't even think I've heard you giggle with such violence and mirth.
That wasn't a laugh, you're right. That was 100% a giggle.
I was like, had to pull away. I just lost the control.
What about you, Mimbo? Do you have a favorite arc or episode?
Actually, quite like the river thing.
I think that was your most heroic moment. Yeah, when you get to fly and do your hero landing, and you're like one of the only ones staying dry.
Yeah, it was like super cool. But I mean, I also like the part where I saved Gisnat and repaired my relationship with like Tweak.
All in the one episode. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's episode 17, Room for Improvement.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Sounds about right.
And I think, Ash, we haven't heard from you. Would you have a favorite episode or arc?
Honestly, I don't think I do. I think I'm more interested in, how this place and this world and my character indeed is going to evolve, and what he can become. If anything, if I really did have to pick one, I'm gonna have to go as far back as being sent down, our first episode, and figuring out I gotta work with these regabouts, and what does this mean? And this surface world has not treated me well, but fuck it, let's do this.
Episode 1, Into the Dark. If you want to know the initial introductions, it gets a bit combat heavy in the second half, but you can fast forward that or put it on double speed if you want to rush through it. It's one of our longer episodes, or if not our longest.
But it also has a lot of lore dump. It was quite interesting.
Yeah, I'd say even if you're curious, just listen to the first sort of 15 minutes. You'll get a lot of lore. Even
Just
just-
listen to the whole lot, you bastards. Don't miss anything.
And always give us a 5-star reviews. But right, before we wrap up this episode, which is probably might be one of our longer ones as well. We'll see. What do you guys have final thoughts? What you want to do with your characters, where you want to go in the world, and where you think things might go, where you'd like things to go. We'll just go around the room, I suppose. Ash, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, just one. I think I've kind of hinted at it, and it's kind of where my character may be going in later levels. This intrigue of the undead and possible potential of breaking my current oaths for that pursuit.
Of course, yeah, there's definitely some intrigue there. You guys have a lot more to explore. Some of it I fully know, and some of it I will explore with you guys, because I like improv these days a lot. Next up, what about you, Fletch? What do you want, or what are your thoughts?
Tweak is all about getting this trade route together and just expanding an empire underground, I think.
I think that's definitely a different campaign than everyone else is on right now, but okay.
Yep.
Gotta have side quests.
What about you, Laurie? What are your thoughts? What are you feeling?
I think Callum does want to go back to the surface at some point, if only to see his kids and maybe take them away from where they are. But yeah, no, he's just pretty happy to go along with it and protect the people he cares about and his fellow party members.
Yeah, absolutely. Lizzie, what do you reckon? Thoughts for Thistle?
Okay, thoughts for Thistle. Wow.
Or the game in general. It's up to you. I don't control your thoughts.
Oh, not yet. Well, I think with Thistle, it's a bit of a personal journey. like I was earlier about her identity. I want her to be able to actually work out what she is and remember about, like, try and bring back her old self so she kind of knows why she's down there. But I know she would like to get back out into like the real world, and just be around nature, be around, enjoy the sun again, that type of thing. To try and go back to like who she was.
Well, maybe there's different types of nature, and I'm trying to get you to embrace other types of nature. But maybe that's just the arc that Thistle still needs to go, or maybe Thistle won't. That's not the arc for Thistle. Who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah, that sounds fun. But so the nature arc as the druid of the group. Yeah, of course. And what about you, Mimbo? Final thoughts for Chuck? I feel like your character's already sort of started to explore their arc of becoming a better person, but you still have a bit of a road for that.
I mean, teenagers are sometimes difficult people.
Yeah, let's go with sometimes.
Not always, sometimes.
I was a pretty difficult teenager sometimes.
Oh
Really?
man, I was a cunt.
Do tell.
If you want to know more about how Fletch was we have American listeners. I'll just go with jerk as a teenager. We'll send him a message. Maybe those stories shouldn't go on the public forums.
Maybe not.
But yeah, but where do you see? What are your final thoughts for Chuck?
I think he has a lot of growing, but I think he's in the right place.
I think he seems to be opening up a little bit more slowly, but I can definitely see that happening more and more in the future.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's you're the youngest member of the group, and of course you've got a lot to learn. Like some of the other, essentially all of the other members of the group have lived a life. Not necessarily, we haven't necessarily explored that in the podcast, but through conversations with you, you've all lived a life. I suppose Lizzie, her character has some degree of amnesia about her old life, but she's also the second oldest of the group at well over a century old. So,
Or does age reset when you become reborn?
I might have to look that up. I will take that question on advisement. I'll figure it out later. Is what that actually means. But yeah, right. Well, if no one has anything else, I feel like we've covered a good amount of recap as we get ready for the next section of the Homestead and its surrounds arc. So yeah, we'll have some more content for you soon, and we'll continue our adventures next time. Thanks for listening.
Listen at your own peril.
That's it for this episode of the High or Lows podcast. If you'd like to get in touch, you can find us on Twitter at High or Lows with underscores between the words, or you can find me at Feepster.
Thanks for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed listening, please leave us a 5-star rating and review, which is one of the best ways you can support us. You can also join the discussion on our Reddit and Facebook pages, or even our Discord server, and maybe play some games with us. Links can be found in the description below. Special thanks to Sirenscape for the background audio and Alex McPherson for providing the opening theme. I hope you can all join us next time as we continue on our adventure.